I've always considered myself a rational guy. I'm not the type to jump at shadows or get spooked by a creaky floorboard. But lately, I've been seeing things, hearing things, and I'm starting to question everything I thought I knew about this neighborhood. Started a few months ago. I live in a quiet suburb, one of those places where people wave from their driveways and everyone acts like they're in some sort of perpetual good mood. Nothing bad ever really happens here. That's why I moved here in the first place. Mr. Holloway moved in last fall. Middle-aged guy, maybe late 40s. Tall, clean-cut, the kind of neighbor you barely notice. I didn't think much of him at first. He kept his lawn neat, picked up his mail on time, even put up holiday lights in December. Normal. Too normal, maybe. But then the noises started. At first, it was faint, odd clattering sounds coming from his basement late at night, like someone knocking over metal shelves or dragging something heavy across the floor. I brushed it off. Everyone's got their quirks, right? Maybe he was into late-night DIY projects or was moving in some furniture. But then it escalated. The noises became sharper, more frantic. There were nights I swore I heard scratching, not like rats or anything small. Something larger, something desperate. I even heard muffled banging once, like fists pounding against a wall, and a voice. Low, broken, impossible to make out. Still, I told myself it was none of my business. I work long hours. The last thing I needed was to start obsessing over a neighbor's weird habits. That all changed about a week ago. It was just after midnight. I was out walking my dog, Jasper. A big, goofy golden retriever who's usually fearless. We were passing by Mr. Holloway's house when Jasper suddenly stopped cold. His ears went flat, his tail tucked under, and he started whining. He refused to budge, his eyes locked on the side of the house. That's when I noticed it, the basement window. It was open just a crack, and there was this faint, pulsing light coming from inside, like a dull, reddish glow. And just for a moment, I swear I saw something. A hand, maybe, brushing against the glass from the inside, pale and claw. I stood there frozen. I wanted to tell myself it was a trick of the light, that it was nothing. But Jasper yanked hard on the leash, pulling me away, whining louder now. And something about the way that hand moved, it didn't feel human. I got out of there fast. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning, replaying the image over and over in my mind. I kept hearing faint thumps in the distance, like something knocking rhythmically against wood, even though my windows were shut tight. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I went out to check the mail, and that's when I saw Mr. Holloway standing on his porch. He was just standing there, no mail in his hand, no package at his feet, just staring at me. His face was blank, but his eyes, there was something hollow about them, like he was seeing right through me. I gave a half-hearted wave. He didn't wave back, just turned and went inside without a word. Since then, it's gotten worse. Sometimes, when I'm out back grilling or letting Jasper run around, I'll catch glimpses of movement through Mr. Holloway's basement window. Not just one shadow, sometimes two, maybe even three, shifting and sliding along the walls like they're pacing. But here's the thing, Mr. Holloway lives alone. At least he's supposed to. A few nights ago, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of Jasper barking wildly at the back door. When I got downstairs, the porch light was flickering, and there, just beyond the fence, I thought I saw someone crouched low watching the house. It was only for a second. By the time I grabbed a flashlight and ran out, whoever it was had vanished. No footprints, no noise, just that same heavy, choking silence. I'm not sure what to do anymore. I keep telling myself to let it go, to mind my own business. But there's this growing, gnawing feeling in my gut that something's wrong, deeply wrong, in that house. Part of me wants to call the cops. Part of me wants to pretend I never saw anything. And part of me wants to know the truth. Because lately, when I'm lying awake at night, I can hear it. Faint but unmistakable. The sound of someone whispering my name from the other side of my bedroom window. The whispering hasn't stopped. It's gotten bolder, louder. Last night, I swear it wasn't just outside my window. It was right at the window, tapping on the glass with long, thin fingers. I didn't look. Today, I finally decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. Around noon, when the neighborhood was quiet, most people at work or inside escaping the summer heat, I walked by Mr. Holloway's house. I wasn't planning anything crazy, just a look, maybe ease my mind. The basement window was shut now, locked tight, but something else caught my eye. The side gate was open, barely swinging in the breeze, like it had been left that way in a hurry. I stood there a long moment, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to go home, to forget about all of this. But I didn't. I slipped through the gate, feeling like a trespasser. The backyard was eerily empty. No chairs, no grill, no kids' toys, just patchy grass and I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was stubborn curiosity, or maybe it was the need to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. But I reached for the handle. It wasn't locked. The door creaked open with a groan that seemed too loud in the thick air. A wave of damp, sour air hit me in the face, and I gagged. It smelled like mold, old blood, and something else I couldn't place. Something wrong. I hesitated at the top of the stairs. It was dark below. The kind of darkness that seems almost alive, pressing up against the edges of the light spilling in from outside. I thought about Jasper waiting for me back at home. I thought about how no one knew where I was right now. And still I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me with a bang that made me flinch. The stairwell plunged into near darkness. Only the faintest outline of the steps remained visible in the thin light slipping through cracks in the door. I took another step down. The air grew colder with each step. By the time I reached the bottom, it felt like I was standing in a cellar that hadn't seen sunlight in decades. It was dead silent at first. Then I heard it. A soft, wet shuffling sound, like something dragging itself across the floor. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The basement was larger than I expected. Cement walls, low ceiling, cluttered with random junk. Old furniture, broken lamps, dusty boxes. And in the far corner, half hidden behind a stack of crates, there was a door. Heavy, metal, with a small square window, the kind you see in old hospitals. There were scratches all over it. Deep, jagged marks clawed into the metal around the handle. And the worst part? The scratches were on the inside of the door. Something had been trying to get out. I started backing toward the stairs, pulse thudding in my ears, when a noise stopped me cold. A soft, wet whisper. "Come closer." It didn't sound like Holloway. It didn't sound human at all. My flashlight flickered. That's when I saw it. Through the tiny window in the metal door, two pale eyes stared back at me. White, unblinking, staring straight into me. I stumbled back, tripping over a pile of debris. My flashlight hit the ground, spinning, casting wild shadows along the walls. The door rattled violently. The thing inside slammed against it again and again, shrieking. Not with words, but with a sound so raw and broken it barely sounded like it belonged to anything living. I scrambled to my feet and ran. Up the stairs, fumbling at the storm door. For a heart-stopping second, it wouldn't budge. It felt like something was pulling it from the other side. Finally, with a scream, I threw my shoulder against it and burst out into the blinding daylight. I didn't stop running until I was back inside my own house. Every door locked, every curtain drawn. I sat there on the floor for what felt like hours. Jasper pressed against my side, whining quietly. My mind raced. What the hell had I just seen? What the hell was Mr. Holloway keeping locked in his basement? More importantly, had it seen me? As the sun started to set, I tried to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, it would end here. That maybe it would stay trapped in that basement. That I could just forget it and move on. But then, just as night fell, there was a knock at my door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. And when I looked through the peephole, my blood ran cold. It wasn't Mr. Holloway. It wasn't even a person. It was something else. Something that shouldn't be able to stand, shouldn't be able to exist. And it was smiling at me. I didn't answer the door. Couldn't. I just stood there, heart pounding so hard I thought it would break my ribs, staring through the peephole at the thing smiling back at me. Its skin was sickly pale, stretched too tight over sharp cheekbones. Its mouth was too wide, filled with thin, yellow teeth that didn't look meant for smiling. And those eyes, those same pale eyes from behind the basement door, they stared at me with a hunger that made my skin crawl. I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at me to stay silent. The thing just kept knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, over and over again, never getting louder, never getting impatient. It was waiting. At some point, I must have blacked out or fallen asleep from sheer terror, because the next thing I remember was waking up on the floor, my back against the front door, Jasper curled protectively against my side. It was morning. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, and for a blissful moment, I almost convinced myself it had been a nightmare, until I saw the front door. Long, ragged scratch marks crisscrossed the wood, gouged so deep that splinters littered the floor beneath it. And right in the center, burned into the wood like some obscene brand, was a symbol I didn't recognize. A messy, looping spiral that twisted in on itself again and again. I didn't even bother calling the cops. What would I say? Hi! There's a monster knocking on my door, and it left evil graffiti? No, if I wanted answers, I had to get them myself. And there was only one place to start. Mr. Holloway. I waited until evening. I don't know why. Maybe it felt safer, slipping into the growing shadows rather than standing out in the glaring daylight. Or maybe I just didn't want the neighbors to see me sneaking around and start asking questions I couldn't answer. Holloway's house looked empty. No lights, no movement. I circled around to the backyard again, heart hammering with every step. The storm door was shut this time, locked tight. But when I reached the back patio, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A second entrance. A narrow, rusted metal door tucked behind some overgrown hedges. It wasn't locked. Inside, it smelled even worse than before. Thick, cloying rot that stuck in my throat and made my eyes water. The narrow hallway beyond was lined with old, peeling wallpaper. Bare bulbs hung from the ceiling, swaying gently even though there was no breeze. I moved carefully, trying not to breathe too deeply. Every step felt wrong, like I was walking deeper into something alive and hungry. At the end of the hall was another door. This one wasn't metal. It was old, wooden, with a brass handle polished. I pressed my ear against it. Silence. For a long moment I considered turning back, pretending I'd never seen any of this. But then I thought about the thing at my door. The scratches. The smile. I couldn't go back to pretending. I turned the handle and stepped inside. The room beyond was nothing like the decaying hallways. It was pristine. The walls were lined with bookshelves crammed full of leather-bound volumes. Strange symbols and diagrams were drawn all over the floor in chalk and ink, circles within circles, spirals within spirals. And at the center of the room, standing over a stone slab covered in faded red stains, was Mr. Holloway. He looked different, thinner, older. His skin hung off his bones like melting wax, and his eyes, once dull and hollow, now gleamed with an unnatural brightness. He smiled when he saw me. "I was wondering when you'd come," he said, voice dry and cracking. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Holloway stepped closer, his hands clasped behind his back. "I'm sorry about the visitor last night," he said casually, like he was apologizing for a barking dog. "It gets restless sometimes, especially when it smells someone new." I took a step back, bumping into a bookshelf. What is it?" I finally managed to choke out. Holloway's smile widened. "An old thing," he said softly. "Older than you can imagine. Trapped here long before any of us were born. It sleeps most of the time. Dreams. But sometimes, it wakes up. And it gets hungry." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his words. "This isn't real," I whispered. "This can't be real." He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "It's very real," he said. "And it's bound to this place. Bound to me. But the bonds are weakening. It's getting stronger. Smarter." I stared at him, horrified. "You're keeping it locked up?" I said. "In your basement?" "For now," he said. "But locks don't last forever. Not when something like that wants out." He turned back to the stone slab, running a hand over the faded stains. "I've been trying to strengthen the seals," he murmured. But it's not enough. I'm getting old. Weak. And when I'm gone, he trailed off, then looked back at me with a gaze that pinned me to the floor. You've seen it now, he said. It knows you. It's marked you. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? I whispered. Holloway smiled, sad and a little pitying. It means you don't have a choice anymore, he said. You're part of this now. Behind him, I noticed something. A book lying open on the slab, its pages filled with those same twisting spirals. And written at the bottom of the page in small, neat handwriting was my name. Not just my first name, my full name. First, middle, last. Written as if it had always been there. The room started spinning. The walls seemed to close in, the symbols on the floor writhing and shifting like living things. You need to learn, Holloway said, his voice distant, almost dreamlike. You need to be ready, because when the bonds break, it will come for you first. The lights flickered. Somewhere deep beneath my feet, I heard the low, heavy thump of something huge moving through the darkness. Coming closer. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard it hurt. No, I said, shaking my head. No, I didn't ask for this. I don't want any part of this. Mr. Holloway watched me with that same sad smile, like a parent watching a child throw a tantrum about something inevitable. It doesn't matter what you want, he said gently. It already sees you. The floor beneath me vibrated with a deep, slow rumble. Dust trickled from the ceiling. Somewhere below, the thing in the basement was stirring, waking up. You can either learn to survive it, Holloway continued, or you can run, and it will find you anyway. I turned and fled without another word. The hallway seemed longer than before, the lights dimmer. I stumbled into the backyard, nearly tripping over the uneven ground, and sprinted home without daring to look back. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind against the window, I was sure it was it, that it had somehow broken free and was waiting for me in the dark. When dawn finally came, I packed a bag. I wasn't staying. I didn't care what Holloway said. I was getting out, putting as many miles between me and that cursed house as possible. I loaded Jasper into the car and peeled out of the driveway, not even glancing at Holloway's place. I drove for hours, stopping only for gas when absolutely necessary. Every time I did, I half expected to see that thing's smiling face peering at me from around a corner. By nightfall, I was hundreds of miles away in a cheap, grimy motel off the highway. It should have been over. I should have been safe. But when I finally closed my eyes, I dreamed of spirals twisting endlessly across the walls. Dreamed of cold, wet hands pressing against my skin. Dreamed of Holloway standing at the foot of my bed, whispering in a voice that wasn't his, "You can't run from it." I woke gasping for air, heart racing. Jasper was growling low in his throat, staring at the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks echoed through the room. No, 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 no. Couldn't be here. Couldn't have followed me. But I already knew it had. I grabbed Jasper and fled out the back door, leaving everything behind. The motel clerk shouted something at me as I bolted through the parking lot, but I didn't stop. I drove through the night, no destination in mind, just away, as far away as possible. Days passed in a blur. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every time I closed my eyes, it was there, waiting. I thought maybe if I just kept moving, it would lose track of me. Maybe distance would weaken its hold. But deep down, I knew better. I saw the signs. The same looping spiral scratched into bathroom stalls, drawn in the condensation on diner windows, burned into the fabric of hotel sheets. It was with me. It would always be with me. By the time I finally stopped, truly stopped, I was in some nameless town where no one knew me, where I could rent a rundown shack with cash and nobody asked questions. I tried to build a life there, tried to pretend it was over. I got a job at a hardware store, kept to myself, talked to no one, but every so often, I'd feel it, that prickling at the back of my neck, that sense of being watched, the low, almost imperceptible thrum beneath my feet, waiting. One night, months later, I found a package on my doorstep. No name, no return address. Inside was a single book, bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed and brittle. And when I opened it, I found the same spirals, the same symbols, and on the very first page, written in that same careful ancient hand, prepare. I sat there for a long time staring at it, because the truth was Holloway had been right. Running hadn't saved me. Hiding hadn't worked. I was marked. I was part of this now. The thing beneath Holloway's house, whatever it was, had seen me. It had claimed me. And sooner or later, when the seals finally broke, it wouldn't just be after me. It would be after everyone. The only question was whether I'd be ready when it came. Slowly, almost against my will, I turned the page and began to read.